All right, good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. Now, first off, I did have a comment. Someone saying the Noahide Laws are not the Ten Commandments, and you are absolutely correct. I made a mistake. I was in my brain. I was thinking of they're kind of like the Ten Commandments, or akin to the Ten Commandments, but they are not the Ten Commandments. That's absolutely correct. I actually did a whole video about this. The seven Noahide Laws. What are they? It was part of the What Is series of videos. And I think these are the laws that they're going to use. They're going to promote across the world, to bring the world together, to bring the whole world under the same set of laws and values, because the three monotheistic religions can generally agree to these. So I did a whole video about this. Very briefly, though, this is the Wikipedia article about it. And so here are the seven. Number one is not to worship idols. Number two is not to curse God. And of course, the question is, well, which God? The God of the Jews, the God of the of Islam, or the God of Christianity? And certainly, the God of Islam and Christianity is not the same. Number three, to establish courts of justice. Number four, not to commit murder. Number five, not to commit adultery, bestiality, or sexual immorality. Number six, not to steal. Number seven, not to eat flesh torn from a living animal. So this is, again, one of the things that most of the world could probably come together and agree to. It's kind of the base set of how to live or whatever, given down to Noah, and referred to as the seven commandments of Noah. And so that's what was in my brain when I was talking about that. But yes, absolutely correct, and thank you for the correction. I'll put the link to the video that I did about it. I did a whole video about speaking about these Noahide laws. So interesting thing to be sure. All right, as we get into the prophecy for today, we get into Ezekiel 38. Now, I am going to talk about the third temple. There's a lot of stuff going on. I've got a bunch of news here. But Ezekiel 38 speaks of the north country, Gog Magog, bring them down to take a spoil. And of course, this is one of these prophetic wars that is yet to occur, and I think it's coming sooner than later. And Ezekiel 38 says in verse 12 here, it says, so they're asking the question, why have you come into the land? Why are you coming over the land with all your partners, the Gog Magog alliance? And the reason for it is to take a spoil, to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, i.e. Israel, Jerusalem, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, and dwell in the midst of the land. So the purpose is to take a spoil, take a prey, and many people say, well, you take SP off spoil, and you get oil. And that leads me directly into my first news item here. This is from jpost.com. Delek Drilling CEO, gas exports to Egypt, Jordan could begin next year. Now this has to do with the Leviathan gas field. And he says, our objective was to flow gas from the Israeli market from the Leviathan gas field by the end of 2019. And we are ahead of our original December target. So Israel is starting to export natural gas to the world now. Natural gas exports from Israel to neighbors, Egypt and Jordan, could commence before the end of the year. So that's incredible. So they are getting natural gas out of the Leviathan gas field. And part of the invasion of Gog and Magog is to take a spoil, to take some of the riches that Israel has. And certainly now that Israel is able to export natural gas, and they will be exporting oil, I expect, then this is going to be even more cause for Russia, especially if an economic collapse happens and it's hard times for everybody and everybody's looking for free money. If Israel then has all the wealth as it relates to oil, then you can see how these nations, after an economic collapse, would really be encouraged, and that would tip the balance to get them to create an alliance with Iran and march on Israel and attempt to steal the spoil, the wealth that Israel has. All right, next article here. Now, this is the big news that happened in Israel. Netanyahu vows to annex all settlements, starting with the Jordan Valley. And we're going to talk about how this maybe leads into the rebuilding of the third temple. There's a rabbi who suggests that they're connected. But this is, like I said, this is the biggest news in the last couple of days. Netanyahu announced Tuesday that if he is reelected, and keep in mind the 70 shepherds of Israel, the prophecy that suggests that Netanyahu will stay in power. He is so far the longest running prime minister, basically. 5 terms, I think it is. And he says if reelected, he will apply sovereignty over all settlements in Judea and Samaria, starting with the Jordan Valley. Now, of course, the UN, the Palestinians are coming out decrying this, saying this is going to be illegal if he does this. Netanyahu said the steps will be taken in coordination with the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump. He revealed that Trump intends to announce his Middle East peace plan soon after September 17th election, and adding that he would wait with his annexation plan until after the deal of the century is revealed. So he says, I will not do anything without getting a clear mandate from the public. What that means is if he is reelected, that will be a clear mandate from the public that they want him to go ahead with this. And I suggest to you that this has a relation to the rebuilding of the third temple. As Israel gains control, their people are going to be calling for the third temple even more. It says, pointing to a map of the Jordan Valley, he said Israel could carry out the plan without annexing a single Palestinian, so without angering the Palestinians specifically, directly, and ensuring that Palestinians maintain complete freedom of movement throughout the West Bank. He hinted that the plan has been coordinated with the U.S., so he has already been talking to Trump about this, and this is likely, I suggest to you, this is part of the concessions that are baked into the peace plan. I would submit, I bet you that this is part of what Trump has said. Look, we're going to let you do this, Israel, as long as you're on board with the rest of the peace plan. And so we have yet to see what the political side of that is, but part of that is probably to green light the annexation of the Jordan Valley. And this is going to be very interesting. And like I said, the other Arab nations don't like this. Arab nations condemn Netanyahu's Jordan Valley annexation plan. So officials in Jordan and Saudi Arabia sharply criticized the announcement. The Palestinians said the move would be illegal, while the UN said that it would destroy a chance of peace talks. So this is interesting. What carrot on a stick are they going to give the Palestinians to get beyond this, given that he's already worked through this with Trump? So how does Trump come along with the peace plan and convince the Arabs that they can come to the table with peace if Netanyahu is going to annex us? And maybe this is all part of a bit of a land for peace. There's probably some money involved. But the big kicker is probably going to be some agreement to deal with the Temple Mount situation. Israel has occupied the West Bank, quote unquote, since 1967, but stopped short of annexation. Palestinians claim the whole area for future development or of a future state. Netanyahu has previously insisted Israel would always retain a presence in the Jordan Valley for security purposes. The a UN spokesperson said the proposed annexation would have no international legal effect. So the whole world prophetically is going to be against Israel, and this will only solidify the anger against Israel. So how do they come out and create a peace plan? It's an interesting question, but some world leader comes along and makes a deal with the various parties here, and it seems to be that it lasts for a 7-year period, or it's stated to be for a 7-year period. I would suggest to you that they put some peace plan on the table, but they say we're going to figure out the final status after 7 years, but let's have a peace agreement first, and then we will, over the next 7 years, figure out a final status agreement on maybe Jerusalem or maybe some other specific locations, maybe the Temple Mount as an example. And that's what the 7-year timeline is for that peace treaty that's confirmed by the Antichrist. So this is kind of the biggest news that's happening. So, all right, let's go ahead. That is, let's go to this one here. Where is it here? BreakingIsraelNews.com. How does it connect to the temple? Well, Netanyahu vows to reconquer Jericho, the door to greater Israel, and the third temple. So a rabbi is coming out and suggesting that there are suggestions here how this is connected. Biblical city, prophetic significance. The largest city let me see, where are we here? The largest city in the Jordan Valley is Jericho, and though it is currently occupied by 18,000 Arabs, it is believed to be one of the oldest inhabited cities, and the city with the oldest known protective wall in the world. Jericho is mentioned many times in the Bible, it says. Rabbi Levi Sundry, an award-winning Bible expert, noted Jericho's spiritual significance. He said, in the Bible, we see that Jericho is the key to all of Israel. Sudri told Breaking Israel News, if you have the key in your hand, only then can you enter. But after you do, the entire land will be open in front of you. So this is kind of a gateway city, if you will, to the rest of Israel and to the rest of the prophetic significance, he is suggesting. Opening up the land for the Mashiach ben David is, in fact, the main function of the Mashiach ben David, as we saw in Yehoshua ben Nun, who was a template for Mashiach ben Yosef. So here's the key here. According to Jewish tradition, the Messianic era is a two-stage process, beginning with the Mashiach, the Messiah, from the house of Joseph, a practical process that includes building up the land of Israel, and the ingathering of the exile. So as Israel is more and more consolidated, put together, when they get more and more of their land back, and of course you have the ingathering of the peoples as well, Mashiach from the house of David is a miraculous process culminating in the completion of the third temple. So as you see, the land being regathered, the people being regathered, the pinnacle of that, the sign that is completed is really the initiation of the rebuilding of the third temple. Contrary to what Netanyahu did, Yitzhak Rabin's downfall began when he gave Jericho to the Arabs. Though it may seem like an insignificant city on the edge of Israel, it is like the door to the house, which does not seem to be part of the house. But if you give the key to an enemy, the entire house falls, he says. So, let's see. It says, Jerusalem is the heart of Israel. Jericho is on the edge, Sudri said. Jerusalem, whose name means complete, is symbolized by the sun, whereas Jericho's name means the word moon. Though they are adjacent on a map, they are actually quite distant from each other, with Jerusalem on a mountaintop and Jericho in the deepest part of the world. There is a strong connection between Jericho and a temple in Jerusalem. Jericho's name comes from the word smell, because the smell of the incense from the temple that existed, the first and second, could be smelled in Jericho. So there's some connections here, and so he sees this as significant, as prophetic, suggesting that the rebuilding of the third temple is near if this is all come together. There is no doubt that Jericho's biblical significance is clear to the Prime Minister, and his campaign took a distinctly biblical turn. When he became the first sitting Prime Minister in Hebron, Netanyahu referred to the biblical significance of Hebron. We all remember the victory call of Caleb and Jephunneh, who was loyal to Hebron. Let us by all means go up. And so this rabbi, again, is suggesting that the significance is, this is kind of the ramp up. He's saying we're seeing the ramp up to the rebuilding of the third temple. We're seeing the ingathering of people. We're seeing, by Aliyah, we're seeing the regathering of the original nation and the lands of Israel by this annexation of the Jordan Valley, which Netanyahu says he will complete if he is given a mandate, if he is elected September 17th. And he says this all gives us a clue, gives us the idea that we are heading towards the rebuilding of the third temple. So that's very fascinating news. Now, that's all I want to say about that. Here's a little update for the hurricanes about... So in terms of storms forecast, just put this on the end here. National Hurricane Center now keeping eye on 4 systems in the Atlantic, including one approaching Florida. So the end is not near for hurricane season, and there's several more systems on their way. 4 systems. There's a disturbance north of Puerto Rico, and it's moving into an area conducive for development and is expected to approach the Bahamas and Florida late this week. Another system further east is approaching the Caribbean. While development is possible over the next couple of days, the Hurricane Center said it's forecast to encounter upper-level winds after that time, it says. So they're tracking several different storms, which are in various percentages of becoming hurricanes. Follow BP Earthwatch. He does a great job of following all these disturbances. But certainly these are coming off the coast of Africa, and there's several on their way. So could there be more significant hurricanes? There absolutely could be. So this is something to be watching for. Will there be another one that rolls up the East Coast? I don't think that it's unlikely there will be another one as bad for the East Coast, but maybe for the Gulf of Mexico, for example, and for Florida. So these things are continuing to come. So I'll leave it there, guys. Significant updates as it relates to Israel. There's fighting going on. There's significant strikes in Iraq by the Israeli Air Force. All sorts of news going on. There's just so much news I can't even follow it all. I'm trying to stay on top of the Third Temple news and the elections, because I think those are kind of the most interesting, prophetically significant, and on the calendar events that are occurring right now. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll continue to watch this, and boy, the outrage continues. Jerusalem is a burdensome stone, and it will absolutely be even more of a burdensome stone with this news, as the countries, put together their talking points as it relates to how they're going to react to this. So pretty fascinating stuff, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll leave there for today, and we'll see you guys in the next video.